Good morning, Florida. It's 6 a.m. sharp, and you're tuned in to 104.5 FM. I'm Larry, and this is your favorite Saturday wake-up call, The Green Hour. Grab your coffee, step outside, and take a deep breath, because today we're diving into everything plants, grass, and gardens. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just trying to keep that one stubborn plant alive, you're in the right place. I'll be sharing tips, stories, and a whole lot of green inspiration. And hey, if you've got questions, doubts, or a plant mystery you can't solve, send them my way. I'm here to help you grow, literally. So let's get this garden party started. Welcome to the Home and Garden Show. I'm Larry O'Neill with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we're talking about outdoor living, whether it be your pond, your pergola, anything to do with making your grass green, your flower garden, getting the start out there. This starting on Monday, we'll start a new project, But if you want to start a new project, you want to give us a call at 855-765-1045. We'll help you going in the right direction, And if your project's not going as planned, give us a call at 855-765-1045. We picked up a bunch of new trees. We always like to pick up new, interesting trees, more ornamental trees we're planting in landscapes. And they've done such a great job with, hybridizing our native redbud. It's, the common redbud green, pink flowers is a great looking tree, but they have some absolutely phenomenal, great red buds, just unbelievable color. Then not only do they have, when they bloom in the spring, they bloom without their leaves, so it's really remarkable. And they're a spring bloomer, so that's very nice to have this, that pop of color in the early season. But they've really worked on having colorful leaves, so the leaves are really interesting during the growing season. And one of the most remarkable ones we've got and we purchased and we planted is the flamethrower. It's just a fairly new introduction. And one of the great things about having this tree in the landscape is a small tree, and landscapes are constricted in size now, so smaller trees come into it. There's some advantages of that. But the color is remarkable. So you have your pink flowers in it when it first puts out its leaves. The first color of the leaf is going to be red. I mean, it is very bright red, and then it moves from red to orange, and from orange to kind of a chartreuse color. Therefore, the flamethrower name. But it is a remarkable tree. It can grow in the full sun. It can tolerate some shade. An understory tree, maybe beside an oak tree, or on the north side of your house where it's getting some shade. But it likes moisture retentive water. I said the same thing, moisture retentive water, 2 weeks in a row. I'm doing good. More coffee, but moisture retentive soil. So you want to make sure to get the best out of them. They need to have that soil to stay moist. Even when we're having these like record droughts, they'll do much better, and they'll look better, and the leaves won't look as tattered. But the flamethrower is definitely a tree if you want to simplify your landscape and have good color in multiple season interest. The flamethrower red bud. You really need to get one of those. You'll really enjoy it, and you will not have any regrets about that one. It won't take up much room. Another one, if you love weeping trees, of course, there's the weeping Japanese maples, which are really a great tree for any landscape. But this one called Ruby Falls, and it's a weeping redbud, and it's a cross between the Texas redbud, Rheinformis, is just a subspecies of our native redbud, but it's very drought resistant. So this one's more drought resistant. It has that in its bloodline or its genetic characteristics, and it's called Ruby Falls. Ruby Falls is a beautiful, beautiful redbud. I mean, it has burgundy leaves, and this foliage in the leaves are bluish green, very bluish green. The most bluish green leaves I've seen on a plant. Not all of them, but most of them, I would say, because there's always the conifers that have some serious blue color. But Ruby Falls is a beautiful tree, and that weeping look. So you can grow in a container. You can have one 3 feet tall, 4 feet tall, 8 feet tall, as long as you support it. When you purchase it, keep supporting it as it grows up. Because if the moment you quit supporting it, it starts weeping down. And it's completely, really, the tissue is really soft. If you came on this tree in the wild, it would be growing at grass like a ground cover. But you support it until it gets really strong, that the trunk tissue gets strong. But again, they're just absolutely great looking foliage. In the sun, it's really kind of glows, absolutely. The blue burgundy has a glowing color. And, some of these trees make great combinations with your, landscape plantings, and having them as a background. You can put more than one, you can put 2 or 3 flamethrowers together that really would amplify it. But the flamethrower goes good if you want to mix, and have a great landscape with low maintenance, But breaking out of the mediocre guy landscape, trying to have a little bit of color. We can teach you how to plant a mediocre landscape or below average, But we'll have a new landscape plan called a below average landscape. But the plants that go good with this is going to be your boxwood, because of that yellow, kind of a yellow green. Really, it looks good against the kind of limey green foliage of the last color of the leaf. And then royal purple liriope. That's very simple. Boxwood, very drought resistant. You can use microphylla, just the species type, and then royal purple liriope has a purple flower in the late summer, early fall, but very easy plants to take care of. And you've broken out of the regular guy landscape, ligustrum, ilex shilling, just the regular stuff. It looks like it goes all from one side of the street to the other side of the street, all the same. But great color, interest. Falls, winter. You have spring interest in summer interest. So that's a great combination. Then using the Ruby Falls, because the foliage is so blue, and burgundy really looks good with blue, and you can use the loropetalum. There's just all different kinds of them. From zuzao to plum. There's all the loropetalum, the burgundy loropetalum. Everybody's on the bandwagon of that. I mean, there must be at least 50 cultivars of loropetalum, at least 50. That would be a conservative. But they come in anything from 2 feet tall to 12 feet tall. But any loropetalum, middle size, purple diamond, would go good with this tree. Or Nandina flirt. You could use those 3 plants together, and really don't have much pruning, maybe on the loropetalum once every 2 years, because it's a very slow grower. They don't get really big. And Nandina flirt has that blue-green foliage and kind of a pink new growth, and then flowers in let me see, the Nandina we planted flirt in one project, and we do the maintenance on it, and it's about 20 years old, and it's never been pruned. And it has great shape to it. And you would not regret planting that plant. Disease resistant, has no problems. These Southern Living Nandinas, except for maybe the exception of Blush, all the ones I've tried have all been exceptional. And never ever plant Nandina firepower. If you like to suffer, if you like to spray for fungicide, and then and then the leaf to be, and after you spray it, don't have any leaves on it, okay, go ahead and do that. But don't ever plant Nandina flower power. It's just not a good plant for our climatic conditions. It may do well in Virginia or North Carolina, but it does not do well here. So cross that off the list. I mean, they're still selling it, but it's just incredible that the people the nurserymen keep growing that thing. But those three plants right there, the Nandina flirt, the Laurel petalum, the Ruby Falls, would make a great. You could put the Ruby Falls in place of a holly, like on the corner of your house, because Ruby Falls is only going to get, let's say, if you bought a large one, maybe 5 to 6 feet, and then it's just going to weep over. It's going to continue to weep over. And one of the things about this tree versus other weeping red buds, that where it turns over, when it turns down to the ground, sometimes that gets sun scald, and you have to put a little bit of latex paint on it to protect it from the sun. But this one is, because it has that reinformis Texas redbud genetics in it, it's a lot more resistant to sun scald. So those would be a great combination. What you would have to do to the soil for these plants? Very little, very little. They're very flexible on the soil, but just making sure you have good irrigation on the red bud, so it doesn't go through drought stress. And then the leaves will look a little tattered. But they don't really have any disease problems. So those are some great candidates, to have a really beautiful landscape. Well, going through the lawn right now, it's the St. Augustine's loving this rain. It's really loving this rain, and we're going through a time where we have a change of weather. Where the humidity, of course, the first 2 days or 3 days of this week were just, for June, we were unbelievably good. Low humidity, the breeze is blowing, moderate temperatures. It was actually in the 60s when in the morning, which was amazing. But on the lawn, to make sure it continues going, good food. The stress months are June, July, August. Where it really is warm. An application of mill organite will always increase the ability of the soil to hold moisture, and also maybe some fish emulsion and seaweed, to make the lawn more heat resistant. These things, if you're really a lawn aficionado, but you want to go ahead and put a couple applications of that. I've over and over again, I'm reading more stuff about the application of seaweed, how important it is to have really healthy crops. In fact, that's one of the most easiest things to do. It's the most studied organic fertilizer of anything, that where they've tried and tested. Seaweed applications. It makes it more heat resistant. It has amino acids in it. It has plant stimulants, all kinds of beneficial things. And one application of that, or you can do two, and really will increase the resistance of the lawn. And it does help resist insects and disease. That's the main thing. You want insects and disease resistant. Welcome back to the Home and Garden Show. I'm Larry O'Neill with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we are talking about outdoor living, whether it be your pond, your pergola, your Chamards oak, your perennial garden, or your flamethrower redbud. Beautiful tree. Definitely worth planting if you're thinking about planting a small, colorful tree, and you want those great spring blooming flowers. That's one of the candidates. And great all-around seasonal interest, great, good-looking leaves. Looks good when it doesn't have any leaves on. Even the weeping redbud, what we call Ruby Falls, is one of the ones we just, we purchased a bunch of those because they're great-looking trees and they deserve a place in the landscape. Really, I'm not seeing more than 2 or 3, maybe, in our area. I think I've only seen one flamethrower, and I've never seen a Ruby Falls. But they're completely neglected as far as what's available, to really plant in your landscape. But the perennial gardens are looking good. We what's blooming right now is Helianthus. They're a great native plant of the lower southeast. Penstemonium, which is another. We have and there are many different native varieties that grow in our area. And Rudbeckia is ending its season right now. It's the Goldstrom early rise, or So what is the key thing to do in perennial gardens right now is deadhead, getting rid of all the dead flowers, cut back, put a big boost of fertilizer on them. Some of these perennials will rebloom, even though they won't be as good or dramatic as they were in the first bloom. And but cut back. The roses are also, if you're a rose gardener and you love hybrid teas, or whether you're growing English roses or shrub roses, a cutback, a light cutback, because it's going to be warm from June, July, August. It's going to in September, and some of those hybrid tea roses will be 7 feet by the time the end of the year. You want to keep them compact, have a lot of breaks. They will go if you're not. Roses, another comment on roses. If they seem to slow down blooming during the middle of the season when it's really hot, but keep fertilizing them. And as soon as it cools down into the upper 70s, you'll have a second. They'll bloom as vigorous as they did in the spring. So that you'll have a second spring. But Cyphalium perfolatum, the cup plant, is really starting to bloom right now. It's rising up. Summer phlox looking good, and what else is going on there? The summer phlox. Some of the grasses are really starting to really come on. The miscanthus are really filling out. The panicums are starting to look good. So a lot of things going on in the perennial garden, and the trees. We planted some smaller growing crepe myrtles, purely purple. That is an unbelievable good-looking crepe myrtle. It only gets around 8 or 10 feet, and has really kind of chocolate brown leaves, a little bit touch of red in them, and purple flowers, and it's just really astounding with the combination of those two colors when it's really blooming. And not big, so you could plant it in any garden. So that's what's blooming. But we finally filled the flower bed up. So it was just a big size, but we put in a gastic purple haze, which is a very heat tolerant. Pretty much blooms for around 2 to 3 months, maybe even longer if you deadhead. We put in digitalis, which is a very popular plant, foxglove. It gets around, this is a big one, gets around 5 feet. That's the foxglove flower stalk does. Calamint neptia, which is a long blooming white, fragrant, and the deer don't like it. The deer don't like it. These digitalis, the foxglove, the deer don't like it. Agastaches, the deer don't like it. And then we have Petrina monarda, which is a beautiful another. I don't know sure if the deer don't like it. On that one, not completely sure on that one, but a beautiful kind of a yellow umbrella type flower late in the fall. So, what you need to do on your we talked about the lawn, and the lawn needs a little bit of fish emulsion and a little bit of or fish hydrolysis, or seaweed is a good application right now to make your perennials more heat resistant and more disease resistant. This is the Home and Garden Show with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design. We'll be right back with more great garden talk. Welcome to the Home and Garden Show. I'm Larry O'Neill with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we are talking about outdoor living, whether it be your pond, your pergola, your grass, your flamethrowers, or your perennial garden. If you're thinking about trying perennial gardening, it's definitely more popular up north, and oftentimes it can be a little discouraging because some of the things that they practice up north does not work down here in the lower southeast, and most people if I talk to somebody, I say, well, we're going to have a perennial garden. They say, well, it's impossible, but it is not. We have just planted one that's been almost a year old and doing absolutely great. Uh, about 75, almost 100 feet and, 25 feet wide. So I think we're up to around 6,000, perennials, which is a lot, So it's, and they're all doing well. I think our total casualties we had was like 4 plants. We had one that was, two insect predations and two that got some type of fungus on them. But that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Those are transplants, so they're always under stress when they're transplanted. But it can be done at a large scale or a small scale. But we were talking about, what to do, as the temperature changes for your grass, and I'm coming to the conclusion that a lot of times we put way too much fertilizer on our grass and we overtend it. And some of the things what we need to really do is to really get the natural ability of its grass to take care of itself. I was just cruising through the woods the other day, looking at trees, and I just, when I took a moment, and there was some St. Augustine back in the woods growing wild, and it looked perfect. And I know no one's been back there to take care of that, and it was about 2.5 feet tall. But to increase the heat resistance of your grass, and you're creating the heat resistance, and you're going to increase the disease resistance and upregulate the grass's ability to take care of, fungus infections and fungus invasions is, keeping the nitrogen low in the middle of summer, and also, spraying with a little bit of seaweed. It's the most studied soil additive or input that's in the face of the earth. So in the nothing but positive, it has amino acids, it has plant hormones, and it doesn't really need a lot. It doesn't need a lot. So overdoing it with these organic kind of home remedy things can be just as negative as not having anything on it. It could make it worse oftentimes. One of the things that that nobody ever uses, but it's an organic alternative. If you're a vegetable gardener, you want to be organic. Absolutely, you don't want to use. You want to stay away from things made by Bayer and all these. If you can, these products are, over a period of time, they're not going to be good. I like Bayer, but there's some things that they, they're chemicals, But some of the things you could do is this pretty much unknown in our areas called wood vinegar, and it's very inexpensive. And it's a biostimulant, and you spray it on your grass, you can spray it on all your vegetable gardens, your plants. And again, it's an upper regulator. It causes the plant to really stimulates the plant to grow, and it has a lot of antibacterial, antifungal qualities, and it has 200 different compounds, and it's a byproduct of wood being burned into charcoal. They dissolve the gas in there and into water, and you only need a little bit. It's 1 per 300 to 500 is the ratio of the volume ratio. So it's if the bottle costs you, $30-40, and you can put that on as a biostimulant, and it would last you plenty of time, plenty of years, and for a reasonable amount. And you can put on your grass, anything. And then another kind of home remedy that's kind of forgotten, which they use it in a large scale in some parts of the world, like Brazil, is to keep your vegetable crop powder mildew free, and is with an application of diluted milk, 9-to-1, and just spray it on your vegetable crop. You got to make sure you follow the rate of dilution. 1 to 9, and it could be non-fat or the regular milk. And what there's a chemical reaction that occurs. So you got to put it on in the morning time, and the UV light reacts with the proteins in the milk, and it makes how would you say, like kind of like a free radical, and it attacks any fungus and bacterial disease. It dissolves their cellular wall, and so it's very effective. And they tested it. It's tested. It's not one of these things that people say, well, I believe it works, or these wives' tales. But this has been scientifically tested. I think it was written in Science magazine, that it is as effective as any commercial fungicide. Effective as commercial fungicide. So if you have powdery mildew and you have it on your cucumbers and your summer crops, just to spray 9 to 1 milk in the morning, where the UV light is going to be powerful in the morning, and you'll have protection. And how often? Once every 3 weeks, and try to keep it. Another thing you could do to make your vegetable crop, as the pressure, the fungus and the bug pressure gets higher, is an aspirin in about 1 gallon of water. One aspirin, uncoated aspirin. You don't want to have not a gelatin, just straight aspirin, the cheapest stuff you can get. Put it in 1 gallon of water, okay? And it's salicylic acid. That's what it basically is. And you spray it on your plants, and it causes an autoimmune response. And so it really upregulates, again, the immune system of the plant. So it will retard fungus, also works on insects. So you can spray that about once every 2 weeks on the leaves. It's not a curative solution, but it's a preventative solution. So it really, how much does that cost? One tablet of aspirin, maybe 20 cents. And if you're a vegetable gardener, or if you've had problems with disease in a particular area, any kind of plant, it will upregulates the immune suppression. Also, I'm going over these home remedies that are tested home remedies. A lot of times people will overwater a plant, or let the plant set in the in a tray where the water collects, and then it starts out rotting, and the plant's root system turns kind of black. As long as there's something alive in there, the plant's got some white, a little bit left, you can save the plant. And it's a very easy, you want to just get some home, not food quality hydrogen peroxide, and just get some regular hydrogen peroxide, and mix it in with a little bit of water, and one to one water, and then pour it over your plant. And that's going to do two different things. It's going to oxygenate the plant, because when you overwater, it causes low oxygen in the root ball, and accentuates the capacity of the disease or already existing fungus there to work on your roots, to destroy your root system. And because most negative fungus is going to be anaerobic, so you're going to really cause a bloom of that fungus in your plant. And so you could put a little bit of hydrogen peroxide 1-to-1 on that, and that will give oxygen to the plant and also destroy any fungus in that area in your plant roots, and you should have a recovery. And that's cheap, and it's not going to be, you're not handling any negative chemicals. And then what's another idea on the taking care of your plants? Something very inexpensive is going to be fish hydrolysis. Now, there's a difference between fish emulsion, and there's a difference between fish hydrolysis. Fish emulsion is a little less expensive, okay, then it does have impact, but for a really high quality plant stimulant, fish hydrolysis. And fish hydrolysis is made it's made by a cold temperature enzymatic production, and it has a little bit higher nitrogen in it, and versus the process of making fish emulsion, it's heated, and sometimes some of the material depends on the manufacturer will degrade. Well, fish hydrolysis is cold temperature, and that, and you can use way less of that. So, you when you're shopping around for, what to do on your fish emulsion, how to get the best price, and what product I should buy, because there's at least 50 different types of fish emulsion out there and fish hydrolysis. Always, if you want to get a little bit better product, fish hydrolysis is a little better. It has more amino acids, and the Indians, they knew, they buried a fish at the bottom of every corn, they planted, every corn seed they planted, and it was effective. So when you're using fish emulsion, or if you're wanting to use fish emulsion or fish hydrolysis, you could, get a little better product out of the fish hydrolysis. So that will be the difference. If you get a little confused sometimes when you're looking at these products, what's the difference? But that is the difference. But we're working on another project, and and always think privacy is the absolute must. You get roof lines, fence, old wooden fences, they need to be covered, because the best day of a wooden fence is the first day, and every day after that is less. Now, it's not the case with a brick wall, but fences, they get saggy, they get discolored, and there's some high quality fences out there that have a great geometric pattern that look good, and when they're taken care of. But, we have to cover up those roof lines. We have to partition if the neighbor's got a 2-story house. How do we, have a little bit of privacy? But some of the fastest growing trees, we got this roof line we got to cover up. We're looking for a fast growing tree, and we're not 20 years old anymore. We still have some speed, and bamboo is a perfect solution if you're having a tropical garden, or if you have an eclectic garden. There's nothing as fast as growing as bamboo. You can plant a small 1 gallon, 3 gallon bamboo. In 2 years, you're gonna have full, almost full growth, which is amazing. But if you wanted to do something different, a tree that would cover up quickly. Some of the fastest growing trees that you can plant is sycamore. Sycamore is a tree that you can grow grass underneath, because it doesn't have a really opaque canopy like. Well, there's that music. This is the Home and Garden Show with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we'll be right back to more great garden talk. Welcome to the Home and Garden Show. I'm Larry O'Neill with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we are talking about, how to get a little bit of privacy in your landscape. If you've made a beautiful landscape, you want to sit outside and enjoy it, and privacy is the best thing. Partition. When you walk outside, you're in your little island, so to speak, in your private garden, and blocking those roof lines, blocking other houses, partitioning, screening those things always is a number one importance. You'll get so much more out of your landscape. It will really improve the overall look of everything. So we were talking about how to do that and be a little quick about it, because these taller things, we got to get 20, 25 feet tall. We don't want to plant any slow growing things. We want to enjoy the landscape, and we don't wait 10 years for it to be a tree. But some of the fastest growing trees in our area are going to be sycamore. And sycamore is a beautiful tree. I really have always enjoyed that tree, because as it matures, it has that white bark on it, and exfoliating. It has, a semi-transparent canopy. It's not a really like a live oak, which is completely opaque, blocking the light. So easy to grow grass on. And Exclaim is one of the varieties that are really durable, heat resistant, disease resistant, and a beautiful tree, very kind of a cone shape in its natural shape, and it's just a great tree. It is deciduous, so you will lose its leaves in the winter, but it does, the branching will provide some partitioning for you, and getting up to around maybe 50, 60 feet, but it grows at a good rate. I mean, that's what the main thing. It can grow up to 6 feet a year. So if you're 3 years, you got 18 additional feet. You start out with a 6 foot or 7 foot tree. You got a pretty good sized tree quickly. If you fertilize and what kind of conditions you want to plant this tree in a area where it can take a little soggy soil. It can take a little soggy soil, but it likes, again, good moisture for good growth. If you're trying to really stimulate a tree to grow well and you want it to be fast, I would, put another zone of irrigation on it, and make sure each tree gets a little bubbler, and so it gets that water continuously. Good mulch, good fertilizer, and trees will really, even a slow growing tree like a live oak, when they're fertilized reliably, you'd be surprised at how much growth I've gotten out of live oaks by fertilizing them reliably, and they'll really launch forward, and you'll shorten the time of establishment, because a lot of times trees take at least a year to get established before they start any upright growth. So you want to shorten that time down as much as you can. Another tree, an uncommon tree that people don't really think about, is eucalyptus. And eucalyptus is a very unusual tree. Its structure, a lot of the eucalyptus trees can have unusual structure and beautiful kind of a red kind of bark, cinnabar bark. They have beautiful bark. Baby blue eucalyptus is a very fast growing tree. It gets, you're talking about 3 to 5 feet a year, has that silvery blue foliage, and it's a remarkable tree, and very unusual, and is very drought resistant. This is the one that's going to be on the drought resistance side. And if you love to clip the foliage, the foliage on these plants, they have actually eucalyptus farms where they clip the foliage. The foliage is sold to florists, and it's very popular. I'm sure you see it in a florist shop if you've been to one. But baby blue eucalyptus, 3 to 5 feet a year. Welcome back to the Home and Garden Show. I'm Larry O'Neill with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we are talking about outdoor living, whether it be your pond, your pergola, your barbecue, your perennial garden. Give us a call at 855-765-1045. If you're starting on a project, we invite you to call us if you're having any issues or you just can't decide which direction to go. 855-765-1045. We're talking about trees, how to have privacy, just about, here's an interesting tree. I'm a little off the little side track, that cinchona tree was called a fever tree. And it's originally from South America. And a native South American was, this is what in the 1400s, had been sick, and he'd happened to drink water that had been sitting over this root, and he had a fever, and he drank it, and he said it recovered. He recovered, and this cinchona tree is the tree they get quinine from, and that was the quinine in that root, water sitting over that root, resolved his issue. So it became the cure, of course, for malaria and a lot of other things. And they brought it to Europe, and then, of course, after a period of time, they developed a synthetic variety. But that's where we get that quinine from the cinchona tree. But going back to trees, of which ones cover quickly, the sycamore, and the variety is called Exclaim because it's disease resistant, insect resistant, and a very fast grower, getting an unbelievable in perfect conditions can get around 6 feet of growth in a year. That's almost one of me, but the baby blue eucalyptus, again, that's 3 to 5 feet, beautiful bark, is very drought resistant once it gets up in size and mature. And another thing you could use it for, if you like to cut, make floral things for your home. The branches are the foliage is sold actually. There's eucalyptus farms in California that grow this tree as a crop because of the foliage. Another interesting tree that has really beautiful exfoliating bark, and it has great looking foliage, and it's not a tree that is like the live oak again, which creates an opaque block, and it is deciduous. That is the river birch, and the river birch is has that kind of exfoliating bark, which kind of a orangish pink color. Looks great with hydrangeas. You could plant an underplanting of hydrangeas, and that looks fantastic. But if you wanted to plant something to block the roof lines, give it a partition, that tree will go around 3 to 5 feet a year in ideal conditions. And river birch, you have to make sure that it's not going to get into the septic system. It does have roots that go out long and wide, you know what I mean, because of it is a water hungry tree. By a retaining pond, no problem. By any wet area, no problem at all. They can grow in a very damp conditions, and they're very durable. Now, they will appreciate a good amount of fertilizer to get that maximum growth on them, and they are the best varieties. There's all different kinds of varieties. There's the one developed at Oklahoma. I think it was developed at the University of Oklahoma. It's called the City Slicker. And like those birches that grow up far north of the white birch, that beautiful white trunks on them. This one is very close to being white. It's very kind of a creamy white. So if you like that color, that's what that tree would offer. And it's heat resistant because Oklahoma is very hot there. And but another one that's very common in our area is Durheat, another heat resistant variety, and its bark is more kind of a creamy orange pink color, and beautiful bark. When they're young, when they're growing vigorously, they have that really beautiful exfoliating bark. And another one which was known for disease resistance is Heritage, and Heritage is the one that's very, very disease resistant, and over all the birches. And so that would be on the list of your selections. That you look at those three, and and the tree comes in a standard. When they grow trees, the standard is one trunk, and then the multi is one of many trunks, and the river birch comes in both ways. So you can have a single trunk or a multi-trunk. Now, if I was trying to cover an area, aerial area, side of a house, a roof line, I would plant the multi-trunk variety because you're going to get a little bit more denser canopy. And again, that's a very fast growing tree, getting around 3 to 5 feet. And then making sure you get the right selection. It's so important that when you're selecting trees, plants, perennials, annuals, that you select the ones that are better in our zone. Like they have a new, in fact, just for an example, they have geranium. A lot of people love geraniums, but they have a new variety that can really take the heat and humidity. So making that you should select from that selection of those cultivars that they grow. So making the right selection is very important. Just like a peach tree that can grow in 400 hours of chill, that would be the one that we can grow here. But if you picked a peach tree that grows in Virginia, with 900 hours of chill, it's going to be unsuccessful. So get one that's that was selected for our climate zone. The Empress tree, this is a very fast growing tree. It's kind of, and again, an open canopy. It does have beautiful flowers, kind of a foxglove type of flower to it. It's called, it gets around 10 to 20 feet of growth a year when in good condition. And it's one of the fast growing trees that happens to have very strong wood. And a lot of times when you get a really fast growing tree, the wood can be very brittle. Well, this one's got pretty strong wood on it. It's cold resistant. It is deciduous. It does have beautiful flowers. It's a spring bloomer, and it has a semi-transparent canopy. Again, a transparent canopy. It's not commonly planted. I've seen them in our area, infrequently, but they are a durable tree in our area, lightweight and very good wood. The one of the other trees that you can plant in the tropicals and that goes pretty good size, it gets around 40 feet at the max and grows good rate, is the jacaranda. The jacaranda, which would rival in beauty of any tree, ornamental tree, because of its beautiful kind of cobalt blue flowers in the spring. And even though after 20 degrees, we had 20 degrees here in our area, it did burn some of the flowers off, so it didn't have flowers this year. It had, one or two, but so it could take it down there. It could really go. It could probably go maybe another 3 to 4 degrees lower. But there was some slight burn back, very modest, and but we planted the tree at about 8 foot, 9 foot. And 3 years later, it's into the 20s. It's into the 20s, definitely in the 20-foot range. So it's a fast growing, and it does have a fairly dense canopy when it's younger. It does open up when it gets older, but it is deciduous if it's really cold. But I find that it keeps 90% of its leaves during the winter, if we have a light winter, and then that would be a candidate. It does, because it's canopy growth on this particular tree. When you're planting it, you want to make sure you pull the roots apart, really get the roots tugged apart, because it has a very dense canopy, and the root system, because of its rate of growth, the root system does not really support that size canopy until it's more mature. So the reason these a little faster growing tree, excluding the sycamore, excluding the river birch, they do need some support, and to avoid a lot of support, you got to make sure you pull apart those roots, get them well rooted in the regular soil, indigenous soil, because that canopy will catch a lot of wind, and because we have a lot of storms, windstorms here, you got to be more sensitive when you're planting them, that you get those roots pulled apart. You don't let any encircling roots, trim off any encircling roots, trimming off the bottom. That if it's root bound, you got to make sure you pull the roots apart. And if your jacaranda is not well planted and supported, it will definitely blow over. So they'll start leaning. And I would support the tree for at least maybe 1 year as it gets larger. You may not have to support it when it's young, for about maybe a year, but when the canopy starts getting larger, maybe 1 year of good support, so it gets well rooted, so it's not getting that tilt on it. But it's definitely a beautiful tree, beautiful spring flowers, provides a partitioning, and you would not be disappointed in that. But if you got a wet area, we could talk about wet areas. Of course, the bald cypress, Shawnee Brave would be it's indigenous tree, or not an indigenous tree, a native tree. More coffee, but it gets upright, stays narrow and compact, and it can grow in soggy areas. A lot of times you have these soggy areas on the perimeter of the property because of the positive drainage, if water's moving away from the house, that would be a good one. Nyssa biflora, it's called a swamp tulip tree, and that can grow in a soggy area. It's a fast grower, 3 to 5 feet, and you would not be disappointed with that one. All that's a deciduous. These are deciduous trees. Now I've seen a lot of these advertisements online where they're selling like hybrid poplar trees. I think it's a cross between a native Canadian poplar and the European poplar. They are fast growing, okay, but they are very brittle. They do have a tendency to break off, but I mean you can get some incredible growth on them. They will be 100 feet. They can get to 100 feet. Now, whether they'll do it in our climate, I don't know. Oh, there's that music again. This is the Home and Garden Show with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design. We'll be right back with you. Welcome to the Home and Garden Show. I'm Larry O'Neill with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we are talking about outdoor living, how to make your garden more private, your landscape more private. When you walk outside you're in your own personal paradise, and that's a key element of every landscape. It's the most neglected, most misunderstood. People really don't think about it because, every time I put emphasis on that and the client lets me go ahead and do that, they're always very pleased at the end result. And there's a little resistance, I tell you, there's a little resistance, and they're unsure whether it looked, but I've never had well, I wish I wouldn't have planted that. I wish I did not. It's amazing. It's privacy. It's I walk outside. I'm in my own personal paradise, and that's what we want our landscapes to be, a personal paradise. But if you're starting out in your landscape project, and whether it be your pergola, be your walkway, or trying to design something, but we are a landscape design company and a pest control company. We do pest control, would be lawn maintenance and all those ornamental things. And you want to give us a call, 904-346-1970. We'll get you going the right road. No project's too small, no project's too big. Larry's Garden will be able to handle it for you. But creating that privacy, that personal paradise is very important. And, we're approaching it if you're growing, we were talking about, temperate trees, more the traditional landscape. But if you're growing a tropical garden, and there's many plants, of course, that you could put along your fence lines to block the telephone poles, wires, all those things, you could include those. And bamboo is the perfect candidate for that. Of course, monastery bamboo is what we planted the last couple of years. Is very, very. Once that fills in, you don't even have to have a fence because you're not going to be able to walk through that bamboo. It is comb on comb. It's the canes are right next to each other, and it's impossible to walk through. A very delicate looking bamboo, getting around 50 feet. And just a really beautiful bamboo monastery. Or if you want something a little bit more cold resistant, of course, Bambusa texellus gracilis. We plant some of these giant. If you got a 3-story building next to you, we can plant Demicalis, that will get around. That gets around, around 50, 60 feet, 80 feet, and it will block a 3-story building, you know what I mean? So it will take a little bit of time. Those giant bamboo, those which we consider, giant bamboos, where the culms are around 6 to 7 inches in diameter. They're breathtaking, but they do take a little bit longer to accumulate that type of strength, the rooting mass in order to put up those type of culms. But it will happen. And we have some black ones that are the culms are black, or the canes. Really, in the bamboo world, the structures are called culms, but so we can have good communication. I call them canes. Everybody understands what bamboo cane is. But also, you can use palms. If you have a tropical garden and you wanted to to use palm trees. Now, it's just the opposite of palm trees. You want to buy something or purchase something about the size you want, because palms are growing upward. You don't want to plant a Washingtonian because they're fast growers. You want the slow growing palm tree about the size you want to block. So let's say Sable dominguensis, you want to get it if you want to block a 20-foot area, that only grows about a foot to 2 foot a year. And then once you get them planted, you don't want to hardly give any fertilizer on them. So maybe you get it even less than that. And so there'll be a 10-year period that will have some blockading. Eventually, it will rise above that area, and you're going to just have the trunk to block. And you can offset them, put them in a line, but offset them so the trunks are going to, as they get more mature, will block that roof line or filter it out. If you for a denser look along a property line, which is there's palm trees that will work. They down south they use discus palms, which are a clustering palm that forms a strong hedge, actually a hedge. And up here we can use those types, and we don't have all the selections they have because of cold resistance. Because when you're committed to putting in a long hedge line or a filter to cover up maybe a 40 or 60 foot area, you want to make sure it's very cold resistant. And the Everglade palm is, well, there goes that music again. This is the Home and Garden Show with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we'll be right back with you with more great garden talk. Welcome to the Home and Garden Show. I'm Larry O'Neill with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we do landscape and design, and we do some great landscaping designs and every kind of theme that you want. And if you want the regular guys landscape, we can do that. If you're thinking about doing a landscape in your new home, or you're thinking about redoing one, you want to give us a call at 904-346-1970. Good water is great for us, and it's also good for the landscape. And, having great looking plants is related to what kind of water they're getting and the quality of the water. And, if you want good drinking water, if you're attached to a well, if you're using well water, definitely need to have a water system, drinking water. And if you would like to improve the overall water quality in your home for your washing your clothes, washing your car, all these multitude of things that soft water can do for you, you want to talk to the water experts. Affordable water. They've been decades and decades of experience. There's nothing that can match that. The amount of training, you can do, but that experience coupled with good training is the right combination. So if someone has installed a water softener or a drinking water system in your house and you can't find good service, they are the experts on service. Service is the most important thing. Even when I buy equipment, I said, "Oh, that's a good price," but where am I getting it fixed at? Oh, we got to send it to Egypt to get it fixed. So, well, I think I'll pass on that one. But you want to give them a call, 904-262-0197, 904-262-0197. We're talking about, how to partition your landscape, creating your own personal paradise. And if you want to sit out, drink coffee, enjoy the outdoors, so, get the maximum load of vitamin D. And, we talked about your traditional gardens, your sycamore, your river birch, and now I'm talking about your tropicals or your Asian garden with use of bamboo. Palms can be used, and but you want to use just the opposite of what you're thinking about when you're talking about your traditional garden. You want fast growing. Well, on a palm tree, you want to get it at the size you want it to block and get the slow growing. And some of the great ones are Sable dominguensis. and that's a very wide trunk. It's related to our navel's cabbage sable. But it comes from the Caribbean. A very wide trunk, getting around 24 inches in diameter. So it has that really thick looking trunk. So that's what makes it a nice palm, and a huge canopy. It's much larger than our sable palm, so you get better coverage, and it's very cold resistant. The next one up would be sable canceria, and that's another really wide trunk on the getting up perfect condition around 30 inches in diameter, and a huge canopy. But these are good ways to block and partition your landscape. We're going to go to Danny in Arlington. He has a question about his pavers, how to keep the grass out of his pavers. Hello, Danny. Good morning. You got. Sure. The absolute. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. It's the problem solved. But the best thing that we used, and we've used it over 10, 15 years, is a herbicide called Spectacle G, and it's a pre-emergent, and you just it comes in a granular. G means granular, and you just kind of spread it out over your driveway and sweep it in, and once you put it in, let's say probably around March, April, it lasts the whole year. You got coverage for the whole year. You may have a little minor resurgence in the fall, and it has no negative effect on the paver system, no negative effect on the coating. But it's called Spectacle G. You could buy it. It's a commercial product. It is a little expensive, but you buy one bag and it will last you 5 years. At least 5 years. In one application. Yeah, well, you can put it down right now. You're gonna have, yeah, you got weeds coming up all the time, and with this amount of rain and this amount of sunlight and heat. Yeah, we do it all. We Spectacle G. We do it all the time. I went to a guy's house. We were doing his landscape, and there were so many weeds in his driveway. I couldn't believe it. It just gotten out of hands over the years. We put the Spectacle G down. We sprayed a little Roundup to kill all the existing weeds. We came back, and about 4 months later, not one weed, not one weed. So that once a year, once a year. All right, Danny, great question. You have a great weekend. Thank you. Yeah. We have so we got Sable Canceria and we have Sable Dominguensis. Those are great palms for blocking because they have big canopies and they're slow growing. And then another great palm tree, for the tropical people, we want to have Everglade palm. And what they are, it's a palm clustering palm. It sends up many trunks and it creates a strong blockade. And so even if you come back and you cut one of the trunks off, it will send up another trunk. It suckers from the bottom. So the Everglade palm, and it's kind of a fan palm, and creates a great blockade, and will get up around into the 20 feet, in the 20 plus feet. Phoenix reclinata is another great palm tree that clusters like the Phoenix Canary Island, or some people call it pineapple palm. This is one of it's in that genus, and but it's a clustering palm, and it will send up long, tall trunks, and it has the frond, the longer leaves versus a fan, and it's another great palm that's cold resistant. You don't want to plant a palm for a hedge line or try to block something that's going to be damaged in case the weather gets into the 20s or even a little below that. But another Phoenix palm is Phoenix theophoracis. It's like a reclinata, similar, but the trunk's a little thinner, and it could have more density, a little more density, and keeping it coming if you wanted to be a filtered partition, you could use that one. So there's the Phoenix palm. We have bamboo, but putting a partition or filtering or blocking the neighbor's house or the neighbor's roof line is the most important. You'll never regret it. You'll never regret it. And you just don't want to plant. Now, Viburnum otissimus works good, but that's going to include trimming. It's going to include trimming. So you kind of want to avoid that. Another great evergreen, which like a Spartan juniper would be probably a good evergreen, but it's not getting that tall, only around 10 feet. But Compressus arizonica they have silver smoke, which is kind of a bluish green evergreen, and Carolina sapphire is a larger grower, more broad. Silver smoke's a little narrower, and those are some really silvery blue green. If you wanted something different, if you had you want that color, you want to play, you can plant a lower pedalum hedge in front of it. And then, but fairly fast growing, gets up there fairly quickly. You don't want anything that creeps along about 1 or 2 foot a year. It's going to take 10 years to get 20 feet if you plant. You need 20 foot of coverage. You buy 6-foot tree, or just skip over and just buy a full grown. The another tree that would be if you have a little more room and you can wait a little longer, is the high tower live oak. It's very calmer, and live oaks do actually, if you've been to Italy and you've been to some of the gardens there, they have these large, talking about large hedges, 30, 40 feet, and they're made out of oak trees. And if you get a lot like a high tower live oak, high-rise live oak, high-rise live oak, it maintains its central leader. So it never has that spreading characteristic. So it's more calmer. And it will planting them in a group, giving it some room. It's going to get around, 30 to 40 feet wide. But if you don't want it, if you want to eliminate the pruning that's included with a viburnum otissimus, that was one way to. But you're going to need room. Okay, but that's one of the things about it. You're going to need some room, and you can prune them up to try to keep them, more narrow. If you're using the tree, let's say if I was going to use a live oak, a small growing one like high rise, I can keep it more compact by when it's starting to grow. Let's let it get established, maybe 2 years. I cut the central leader out of it. If I cut the central leader, that's that top leading branch. If I remove the central leader from a bald cypress, from a live oak, or anything, I'm immediately going to reduce its size by 20 to 30%. It will never, ever get that size that it would if that central leader wasn't cut out of it. So if I want to reduce the overall height, I cut the central leader out of it. It's a trick that you can do to keep things more compact. But only on trees that have a central leader. So you can't, trying to get that organized on something else is going to be a little difficult. But those are some great ideas to give you that private garden, to make it more exclusive, and enjoy the outside without having to, have your neighbor peering down through you, looking through the window at you when you're sitting out there in your short pants, enjoying the pool. The pool is a great place which I think is having a pool without a screen enclosure. I love that idea. But if you have a pool without a screen enclosure, the great place to put a perennial garden or a tropical garden is right along the edge. And that really enhances the view. It gives you a little bit of privacy, when you have that border along the pool area, and it's colorful, it's vibrant. And the other thing you could do to really improve the poolside area is great containers. Let's say if you didn't you didn't want to have a lot of maintenance, which a perennial garden is some maintenance, and so is a tropical garden. Any kind of landscaping is some maintenance. And you got to figure that any great garden or any great landscape or any great vegetable garden, how the outcome is going to be the good planning, good structure, and good timing. What was timing is making sure the plants there's something of interest every year. But 50% of the project is how well the maintenance is done. And the planning portion of it is important too, because that, addresses the potential problems that you could have in a landscape. And the potential problems could be drainage. Drainage is a potential problem that nobody wants to address as they're starting in a landscape project. Whereas there's that music again. This is the Home and Garden Show with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design. We'll be right back with more great garden talk. Welcome to the Home and Garden Show. I'm Larry O'Neill with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design, and we are talking about outdoor living, whether it be your pond, your pergola, how to create a great barrier between, a natural barrier to partition your paradise, your own private paradise, your own garden or landscape. But if you're starting out on a landscape project, you have a question or things ain't going as planned, we invite you to call us at 855-765-1045. 855-765-1045. Or if you'd like to hire us to do it, or you want to just have the enjoyment part, you want to give Larry's Garden a call. We do great landscape design. We are a pest control company. We know more about plants than anybody. I've taken a 30 or 40 year journey in exploring plant material. But you want to give us a call at 904-346-1970. We were talking about, when you're starting on a garden project, some of the things that, or a landscape project that people don't think about. Well, they need to be at the forefront. Planning is the most important thing. If you wanted to have more privacy, that's got to be in the forefront of your project. Drainage, a lot of times it's the unfun parts, the drainage issue. If you have a drainage issue, address that before can't tell you how many times I've had to go to people where they put in a landscape and they've had issues with the drainage, and that ruins it. So, you want to make sure you address any drainage problems, or put a landscape in that is sympathetic, that it will go with that drainage issue. And so, matching the plants that grow with that issue. Don't try to plant things that will not grow in soggy soil, because it's going to be a failure. And then, the second thing, is weed control. If you're trying to get rid of grass, you want a lot of proponents of grow less grass for some reason, but grass is a good carbon sink if you're a grain, if you want more carbon absorbed, grass is a great carbon sink. It absorbs a lot. But it does need some maintenance, but one of the things, if you want to do away with the grass, people never think about the weed control. This is a great idea, but we have torpedo grass, we have dollar weed. Weed control becomes the forefront of your planning. And how am I going to prevent a lot of weeds? For example, we were putting this perennial garden in. The place was inundated with torpedo grass, inundated with dollar weed, and we knew that we had to address this problem in the beginning, because 40 years of experience that said this has got to be taken care of in the beginning, when I didn't know any better. So we buried the landscape fabric below there and put new dirt on top. And we have weeding probably starting in March to now. We probably haven't weeded a trash can full, not even that, because and they're very, very, very little weeds. And then you can use pre-emergent as that, and you've got those problems solved. And then got the drainage, we got weed control, and then we got to think about irrigation. The irrigation, when we have these extended droughts, how are we going to apply water? How are we going to be more efficient in water application? There's two different things that you need to consider, even beyond the irrigation, which would help the irrigation, is the soil quality. And remember, and when you're building your soil for your garden, well, unfortunately, the time has ran out. This is the Home and Garden Show with Larry's Garden Landscape and Design. We thank you for having us this weekend, and we shall see you next week.